All right, Geek. Welcome back for our final discussion on Sherlock. Today, guys, we'll be discussing Sherlock Season 4, Episode 3, entitled The Final Problem. Now, Geek, going into this episode, it's pretty safe to say that you had a bunch of questions for me as to how I would react to this final episode and what I was thinking about some of the storylines going into this episode. So you got some questions for me, so just fire away.
Yeah, well, we usually start by you asking me what I thought about this episode, but as we're at the finale and you've not seen it or this is your first time watching it, I'm just curious, what were you expecting from it, first of all, or what did you think might happen?
I thought John Watson was gonna. No, I thought John was gonna be dead. Cause,
Okay.
cause, 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 for those of you who have watched our reviews since day one, in the last episode, John got shot by Sherlock's sister that we didn't know existed in an office somewhere. So the way that this episode started off was very, very, very weird. It started off with a girl on a plane, and then it jumped to Mycroft going through his house, hearing voices, and then it jumped to Sherlock showing up, confirming that he had a sister, and then discovering that his sister was locked away for years and years and years. And that opens up a whole can of worms that we have to deal with. But the one thing that I hated was they shot John in the last episode, like I said, and then they just sort of sweep it under the rug, going, "Oh, he's okay." It was this whole big thing to figure out that you were lying to me, Mycroft. And I was like, "Really, guys? That's bullshit." Because you had a really like you fucking. Oh, that was so stupid. I hated that.
Yeah, in terms of like twists and reveals, it was shocking, but
It
I
was so
don't think they
dumb.
really set it up. There's a lot in this episode, and I'm sure I said this in one of the last reviews, where I think they tried to condense a lot of ideas for 2 seasons into like 2 or 3 episodes.
I have no problem with Sherlock and Mycroft having a sister. The main issue that I had, and I think I brought this up in one of our earlier episodes that we done when she showed up, there was no proper lead up to this character being a big threat, like you suggested in one of our past episodes. If Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss knew that they were going to introduce her in the final season, lead up to her, right? Like
Mm.
have her randomly in past episodes, right, to build up the mystery of who the hell this woman is, and then slowly reveal her, right, like a Moriarty thing, like they did in season one. Because
Yeah,
in season one, the great thing about season one is until episode three, I believe, we have no we keep hearing this name. We keep hearing Moriarty. We keep hearing Moriarty, but we have no idea who he is until the final season of season one in the pool. That's awesome. But they didn't really do that. It's like Mark and Stephen Moffat knew that they were headed towards an end, and they just needed something to get them there.
yeah. I mean, they even brought Moriarty back for this episode as
Yeah,
well. they
yeah.
can't they can't leave him. I said that in a previous review. Is they clearly latched on very quickly to how popular this guy was and the actor was and the character was, and they kept him in it too long.
Listen, when he showed up for a split second, I was like, "Bullshit! That guy's dead. His head went kabonkers." But then when you step into the office with Moriarty, you get the timestamp of 5 years later. I'm like, "Okay, but still, you're so right." Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat. Look, it sounds like I'm criticizing them, and I kind of am. They overused Moriarty too much in the series to the point of like, guys, enough already. The character of Sherlock Holmes, I'm sure, had other villains. It just couldn't be the Joker all the time, or it just couldn't have been Moriarty all the time. So that really frustrated me that they overused him quite a bit.
I hadn't watched this since it was on TV, and that was January 2017 because it said so on BBC iPlayer. So there was stuff that I remembered, and then it was all the stuff. Let's say you said it didn't build up to it. They just sort of threw this woman in, and then they had to tie it all up together. And the start's so weird because you get, you know, the different scenes. You get the Mycroft stuff, and then the other stuff, and then it's a reveal within a reveal, and it's trying to be clever, but it's not that clever.
I did appreciate the fact that, she had this innate ability to sort of traumatize people into doing whatever she wanted. And the
Mm.
fact that she got control of the prison that she was in was really, really. I I like that bit quite a bit. Um, and the reason why I liked it so much is because I really appreciated that we saw Sherlock really be at the end of his wits in a particular moment in this episode. And I thought it was really nice when Sherlock had to call Molly and had to, convince Molly to basically tell him that she loves him. And I thought that was a really nice moment, but I also really liked the way that Benedict Cumberbatch played it and how he let his emotions run with him for that particular episode. Also, I really like how this episode really showed us how vulnerable Mycroft was, that he needed his sister to do these things for the greater good for Britain. So in order to make her happy, he kept bringing her gifts, and one of the gifts that he brought her is the one guy that fucked everything up in Moriarty. So I thought that they did some interesting things with Mycroft, but still, it felt kind of like, really, this is what you guys are gonna do?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of TV shows that have done that, like Lost and Game of Thrones and things, but yeah, I think it was an idea that they had that they never fleshed out, and they maybe fleshed out the backstory of the three Holmes children, but they didn't flesh out how they were going to fit it in, so it just all got thrown in together. And I don't know, like, I'm sure I've said this before in other reviews, but outside of Doctor Who, if you watch anything that Stephen Moffat has written, you kind of have to turn logic off a lot, or at least, you know, the way that logic works in the real world.
Logic
Because things just happen and coincidences just happen, and it's just like, okay. Yeah. I don't know if it's because maybe I'm a little bit older or whatever, but yeah, the writing on this one isn't great. I don't think it's the weakest out of all the Sherlock Holmes episodes, but I think they were coming to the end of the run. The two main actors in it were now worldwide stars in huge franchises, and it's just going to cost too much money to keep them around, basically.
You've been here with me every step of this review series, so I just want to say thank you for that. Before we, before we end, before I forget. So I just want to say thank you
Thank
for
you.
that.
No, thanks for having me on.
But you know that I have been very, very critical of Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss for their storytelling. You know that because for seasons now I've been complaining about the storytelling. So this might be shocking to you. I really liked how the storytelling was done in this episode because I didn't think that it was overpacked. I thought that it was very kind of focused and we didn't have like a million things going on. And everything was sort of central to Sherlock's sister. Even the girl on the plane that I thought was a little bit stupid and nuts. When we got to that, you can speak on that in a minute. But as far as not having a million balls in the air and just juggling a couple things, I thought that they did reasonably okay. Not great by any sense of the imagination. But do you want to talk about the girl on the plane? Because that really pissed me off when we found out what that was.
Yeah, I mean, again, I hadn't watched it since it was first on, so rewatching it, I was like, is this a flashback? Is this the Moriarty virus, whatever that was that they didn't really explain either? Is it something else? And the first sort of 15 minutes of the episode did feel like there was a little bit all over the place, and rewatching it, the bit with the drone and the grenade, that's a great example of turning logic off for Stephen Moffat. Yeah, there's a drone that managed to come into this building, find the building, find the room they were in. There happened to be a window that was open that the drone got into without making a sound until it was like 5 feet behind them with a grenade on it, and then the grenade explodes, and I don't know if you noticed, but when they jump out the window, if you look at Martin Freeman's face, it's the worst CGI you've ever seen.
Yep.
It's like
Yeah.
copied. His face is bigger than his head.
Yeah, yeah, it was just awful. But the other thing that I was thinking was like, okay, I thought that this drone crashed through the window, and I'm like, how could this drone crash through the window if it has a grenade on it? Because if it
Mm-hmm.
crashes through the fucking window, the grenade's gonna go off. So I'm like, did they fall asleep when they were writing this to think about logic? Because there were 100 other ways that they could have done this.
Oh yeah, like, even if you think about the sister's end goal, she wouldn't have to go to that extreme. I mean, what if they hadn't escaped? They would have died there and then, and the episode would have went
Yeah.
nowhere. So it's again, it's like it's a logic. I mean, I think that would have been a good opportunity to kill John and maybe piss Sherlock off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But
No, but the
yeah, that scene when I rewatched that, I was just like, that is crazy.
but the other thing is that you just came up with a great point. What if Sherlock would have lost either John or Mycroft in this episode? It would have been a great opportunity to give to tell Sherlock that his decisions or the people that he comes across in his life. This episode would have been really a chance to really find out where Sherlock's thought process goes if he had to choose between Mycroft and John. They did that. Listen, they did that for a couple for a little bit, but they really didn't entertain it that much. I thought.
Yeah, again, it's to do with popularity. I think if you killed off, even if it was the final episode, if you killed off Watson, some people would be pissed off. More people would be pissed off if you killed Watson than you killed Mycroft, but Mycroft's always going to have his fans. But yeah, they should. If they known it was the last one, they should have taken some risks. It's your opportunity. Why not kill some people? Have some real level danger and threats and things.
You just mentioned Minecraft. I love Minecraft. Minecraft is fucking awesome. I don't think that guy gets enough credit.
Mm, mm.
And the fact that Mycroft was played by one of the co-creators of the entire show is also a giant credit to Mark Gatiss, not only as a writer of the show, but as an actor himself. Generally, I really really wanted something else because I didn't think that we were going to get this sort of like Joker with Sherlock, John, and Mycroft being the Batman in Arkham Asylum this whole
Mm.
time.
Good,
I
yeah,
would
good analogy.
Yeah, I would have preferred if this woman was a little bit more stable but unstable, and caused chaos throughout the entirety of London because she thought that she was done wrong by Mycroft in some particular way, and Sherlock had to figure out why the hell he couldn't remember that he had a sister in the first place. If now go with me a little bit. If Mycroft in some way brainwashed Sherlock to forget about his sister, I would have preferred it if Mycroft would have lied to Sherlock in some way, and then Sherlock would have to deal with Mycroft's betrayal on top of having to deal with his sister threatening the greater London area. But what we got is what we got, I guess.
Yeah. So should we talk about the whole Redbeard thing, or do you want to save that for a bit later on?
No. We can no. Actually, we can talk about that now because I thought that was ridiculous. I was like,
Well, yeah, that was
what?
going to be my question. What did you think? Is like, yeah, there was no set up for that or anything at all either.
You know what? I didn't care. You know why I didn't care? You know why I didn't care? Because this thing wasn't set up properly.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
if this thing was set up for an entire season, and we saw everything that Sherlock's sister had done behind the scenes for an entire season leading up to this third season, then I would give a shit. But because she was introduced in the background in a couple previous episodes, I'm like, who the hell is this person and why is she popping up right now?
Yeah.
And you told me that she was going to come back in a particular way, but I'm like, no. I really thought that they fumbled it with the Redbeard kind of thing. What did you think about that when you first saw it?
I just remember thinking, like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you putting this in? Now, it's just like there was just so much happening with like finding out what's going on in the prison, and then the thing with the glass and they're touching hands and all that stuff. And yeah, it just felt like it was just hitting you like with a twist or some kind of plot device every 2 or 3 minutes, if not seconds sometimes.
What was your favorite test that she put the boys through as they were going through the prison?
The tests.
You really didn't like those, did you?
No, because I just remember. Well, now you think it's an escape room, but at the time you just would think it was a Saw movie.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you ever heard of a game show? I don't know if there was like a US version or the UK version made it across the pond. Called the Crystal Maze.
No, I've never heard of that.
Right. So Crystal Maze is essentially, it was presented by, originally it was a game show in the 90s in the UK. Was the name of the guy presenting it? Richard O'Brien, the guy that was in Rocky Horror Picture Show, the bald guy.
Uh-huh.
So they would get teams of strangers on, and they would go to like different zones. So there'd be like an Aztec zone, a future zone, and under the water zone, moon-based zone, and every zone had rooms. So you had to put like a team member into a room, and it was like a different challenge, like a mental one or a physical one, or they had to like go across poles and carry stuff in order to get a crystal and bring it back. And that's all I thought about. If you Google or YouTube Crystal Maze clips, that's all I thought about throughout watching that, because it had a very distinctive theme tune as well. If you Google the Crystal Maze theme tune, it's kind of sticks in your head, and that's all I heard was a Crystal Maze theme tune when I was watching this.
Wow. Okay. Like I said, the maze things were really interesting. Like I really said earlier, that my favorite part or my favorite test was Molly. The thing with Molly, I thought that was really great. Because I think because I also think that's the only character that really got some closure. Lestrade didn't really get anything to do. He was just there because he was there. Mrs. Hudson was there because she was just there. That was pretty it. But again, look, I thought this episode was okay, but I was like, this episode is nowhere near finality quality. This episode is nowhere near finale quality.
Imagine if you're watching it for the first time, you must have all been like, where is this going? It just feels like, although I mentioned a game show, it just felt like an old school, like Mario or Sonic game, where it's just the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing, and then you fight a boss, and it's the next thing, and sort of something like that.
Looking back on the Sherlock series, as we sort of like bring it all around, right? What's your favorite series of Sherlock? And if you can, what's your favorite episode?
Okay, my favorite series. Let me think about the episodes for a second. So, I mean, I would say season 1, because that at the time, although it's not aged well or for loads of different reasons, but it was like a new actor, Benedict Cumberbatch, delivering a great performance and something that was an original take or a modern take on a classic, bringing it into the modern time. Martin Freeman, who at the time in the UK was only known for doing The Office, and that was like, that was iconic in the UK. So it was him escaping that role. So it was 2 great actors, great supporting cast, and it set the bar, and the bar was never kept up to height consistently. So season 1 for me would be my favorite season, and I want to say the first episode, but I'm going to say the last episode of season 1, because that's the Moriarty one.
My favorite series is series 2 or season 2. My favorite episode is when Irene Adler gets introduced. I think that is, if memory serves, I think that's the first episode of season 2. I think.
Yeah.
I think. And then another episode that I like very, very much is one where Molly Hooper steps in, and she plays Sherlock's she plays Sherlock's assistant for about an episode and a half. I really, really liked that episode. I cannot remember what the episode is called, but I love that episode. And lastly, I really, really, really liked the Christmas episode that we talked about just a little while ago.
Yeah, I forgot about that, actually. I wouldn't say it was top episodes, but yeah, the Irene Adler one I would kind of say was my joint first, if I'm being honest, because there was just, it was really well directed, because they'd done all the fantasy stuff about his head hitting the bed and being into locations, and Irene Adler was just something that he'd never handled before, and it
Nope.
was just all brilliantly done. But yeah, I'd probably say that Irene Adler episode was my favorite episode, but season one was my favorite season.
I really like the Hounds of the Baskerville. You kind of didn't like that from what I can remember.
No, no,
I,
I
I
just hated the twist. It's this
you
that was the
hated
first
that
episode.
one.
Yeah, it just when the twist came apart, because I remember watching it originally back in the day, and I was just like, wait, where is this going? How are they going to tie it all up together? And is
Right.
it going to be that simple? And it was just like, oh, whatever.
Before I invited you here to do to rewatch Sherlock with me episode by episode, and we had all our discussions, I really thought that I liked Sherlock a lot more than I did. But I think, but, but you know, but I think this rewatch made me understand that that I was thinking about the show with rose-colored glasses, and
Mm, mm,
and I was only thinking about the first season
yeah.
because there's a lot of shit um that happens later on that that just didn't agree with me. The storytelling bothered me a lot, which you know. I would say if you're a Stephen Moffat fan, check this out, but know that you're going to be two things. You're going to be really frustrated and you're going to be really pissed a lot of the time. Do you have any final things to say before we wrap up?
I mean, yeah, it was a letdown, but I don't think it was Game of Thrones or Lost bad. It didn't have that magnitude to it because it didn't have that
Nice.
sort of social and cultural impact. I think Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman had a bigger impact than the show.
The show
So
did.
yeah, it is a letdown, and I wish there was things that they'd done differently in the series. And we've mentioned it before in a few episodes, but give Lestrade something to do. They should have done in an
Yeah,
episode from Lestrade's point of view,
that would
and
have been
then Sherlock,
cool.
yeah, and then just have like Sherlock, like Star Trek Lower Decks episode where he's the main character, and Sherlock and Watson are just the background characters in his story.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Could have done an episode about Molly too.
Yeah, I mean this it wasn't before streaming. It was sort of around when streaming happened, but the streaming format that we have at the moment wasn't in place. So it wasn't really, although we call it a season or a series, it wasn't. It was like three sort of specials per every 2 years. Yeah, so if they'd done it now, it'd probably be like at least 8 episodes, probably 10 or 12, and you could do that. Definitely, let's say that earlier on, take some risks, show things from other people's point of views, make them more fleshed out characters that you care about.
I would have really appreciated if they would have gone into Sherlock's cabinet of villains. I haven't read Sherlock's the Sherlock books since high school, or the Sherlock books since high school, because there's more than one. But I'm sure
Mm.
that he had. But I'm sure that he had other villains.
Yeah, but I think Moriarty's the named one because I don't quote me on this, but I'm probably willing to bet if you look at the Sherlock Holmes films, he's the villain that kept popping up with the Joker. You said it yourself, he's basically
Right.
the Joker. He's the
He's a Joker.
recognizable villain.
It was a nice rewatch, but when I want to watch Sherlock again, I'm only going to watch like a handful of episodes, if that.
Yeah.
Because because I can tell you right now, I'm never going to sit through this whole series again. Because I just don't. I have better things to do with my time, unfortunately. So before we go, Geek, do you want to tell the folks at home what we have planned up next for them? Because we have something we've been planning for a while now.
Well, yeah, it's from the same creators, but don't let that put you off. And it's kind of the same format, but again, don't let that put you off. It's the modern retelling of Jekyll, and it was just Stephen Moffat that done this. I don't know if Martin Gates is even in it, but little known British show, ran for 6 episodes, one season.
If you like Stephen Moffat and if you like us, come back for those reviews. I don't know when those reviews are going to be on the channel, but they will definitely be on the channel in the future. Before we go away, Geek, if the good folks at home want to chat with you about anything at all, will be the best place for them to do that online.
Yeah, if you go to YouTube and you type in the Geek In Review, you'll find my channel. So like and subscribe and all that stuff. Or you can follow me on Twitter at the Geeks Reviews, and that's all the one word.
All right, sounds good. And guys, I just want to say a huge thank you to any of you who watched our Sherlock reviews since day one. It's been a long journey, but it was a hell out of a fun. I just want to say thank you again to my good friend Geek for being willing to take this journey with me. It was a pleasure to talk Sherlock with you.
No, pleasure for having me on, man. Thank you.
And guys, if you want to catch my adventures online, the best place for you to do that is on Twitter. I'm at CrickFanatic88. But until next time, guys, as I say often, I'll see you when I see you.
So much happened here, and so much is about to.